Craig Schulze is an accomplished entrepreneur. He's an international speaker, and he's the author of the book, very impactful book, actually, You've Got One Shot. He really tells it like it is.
Leveraging skills is a really powerful thing. If you are good at something in your job, why not start a side hustle around the consultancy of that skill? You know, you might be a professional salesperson on the road.
Welcome, entrepreneur movers and shakers. This is the Tony DUrso Show. You're at the right place. I thank you for joining in with us. You know, entrepreneurship is one of our greatest adventures, one of life's greatest adventures. It's filled with moments of inspiration, struggle, triumphs, and sometimes, you all know this, overwhelming uncertainty. And you might find yourself wondering, am I making the right choices? I ask that a lot. You know, how do I move from just surviving to thriving? I think a lot of us ask that. And above all, how can I maximize every opportunity? Because truly, I have just one shot at this. You know, there's a lot more I could say about that, but let me make it easy for you. Today's guest has not only faced these questions head on, but he's answered them in ways that have dramatically transformed his own life and the lives of countless others. Craig Schulze is an accomplished entrepreneur. He's an international speaker, and he's the author of the book, very impactful book, actually, You've Got One Shot. He really tells it like it is. He's got experience in over 100 countries. He has ownership in both physical and online businesses. And he's created this very insightful business library called Leverage Vault. He's going to tell us all about it. And if I had to embody a concept, I would say strategic vision. And you guys know how important vision and strategy is to me. And so I say, if you've ever wondered how to leverage experiences, if you've wondered about investing in yourself and should you, or how do you invest in yourself? If you've wondered about mentorship, which can change everything. It has for me when I podcasted 10 years ago. Mentorship changed everything. Then I have for you. If you've thought of any of these or were curious about anything I've said, then stick around. Craig Schulze is here to show you exactly how to take your shot and make it count. Let's dive in. Let's go bring him on. Hi, Craig. Welcome to the Tony DUrso Show.
Thanks, Tony. How are you today?
It's a beautiful day. It's the best day of my life, actually. And I am so grateful to have this opportunity to speak to you about taking one shot. You know, I've had many topics, but I don't think I've ever really hit this topic head on in 5, 6, whatever hundreds of interviews I've done over 10 years. So really excited about this. And let's learn a little bit more from you. Could you tell us, Craig, how did it all start for you?
Yeah, look, I mean, I grew up in a small mining town in an island off Australia called Tasmania. The island has about 500,000 people. My hometown had about 1,000 people. And we really lacked, I guess, opportunity. So the mining town, you left school at year 10. And my opportunity was, do I go and work in the mines as a 15, 16-year-old, or do I further my education? So I left home when I was 15. Not because I wasn't loved. It was really just opportunity. I moved 3-4 hours away. And I guess at that point in my life, you know, you're 15 years of age and it's all about resilience and being able to face things. So I feel the grounding of that was a really good start. And put myself through university, which you might call college. I got my first job as an engineer after that education. And I actually fired my boss 18 months into that after spending all that money and all that time in my education. I started my first business when I was 21 and I knew nothing about business. You know, at 21, you probably know nothing about life. But at that point in time, whatever I lacked in life and business skills, I made up for desire and the work ethic to do whatever it takes for success. That ended up me owning 5 gyms, being one of the states of Australia's Fitness Professional of the Year, built a property portfolio that was 11 investment properties. I had set up 22 franchises, built a 7-figure online business, I have my own podcast, wrote books, spoke all over the world, investor in a number of different private companies. And along that 25-year journey, there's lots of stories in there that we can dive into. But, the one-shot story for me was a life-changing one, and I'm sure we'll visit that in this conversation. But, my message to people is you've got one shot at life. Give it your best shot, whatever it is for you, whether it's to climb the corporate ladder, to be the best parent you could be, to write a book, be a sports coach for your children. It doesn't really matter. Just give life its best shot because it goes quickly.
Wow, how impressive. Now, I'm going to mention a reference here, and probably nobody in the audience is going to get the reference, but I think you will. So let's explain it. And I'm going to date myself. Once upon a time, does that sound like a story tale? I used to watch, as a child, Bugs Bunny cartoons. And in the Bugs Bunny cartoons, there was always this Tasmanian devil that came out. And I mentioned that only because you came from, you were born in Tasmania. And when I hear of Tasmania, I think of this, I get that concept from that Bugs Bunny commercial of the Tasmanian devil, who's just a whirlwind, and he just bulldozes through everything as a wind and just shoots through everything and just gets it done to a degree, except Bugsy always comes out ahead, I'm sure. And I just think of just going for it no matter what and taking it seriously. And there's so much I could say about it, because sometimes we're told, the person never says no. When a person says no, it never really means no. And you keep pestering the person for 20 years and you never let go. And I'm not a fan of that philosophy. I like your give it your best, do it right, and just boom through. So I really kind of like that. You've done so much, and I'm curious now, and I hope you took that pleasantly, that little reference there on Tasmania. Oh, there you go. And I'm just curious now that you've built, let's call it your empire with all your holdings and assets, you're helping others. And I'm curious why, because you could just keep amassing wealth and growing, but now you're helping others. So I'm really curious why you're doing that. What's the purpose or reason behind that?
Look, I think life is made of moments, and one moment can change your life. And for me, that's the one-shot moment that did change my life. And back in 2014, my wife and I were doing very well in business and finance. We're traveling around the world. Life was great. We'd just been married for a couple of years, got our family home, and we started to have a family. And we got right to the end of bringing our first child to the world. And just one of the last checkups going into that, my wife and I got told that our son had died inside a stillborn. So what happened from that point on was like the life-changing, the line in the sand moment for me. So we were packed to go for a little holiday together. We had our bags packed. This was just a routine appointment. And those bags were actually packed for a birthing suite. And the next 48 hours for me was actually life-changing experience. My wife had to deliver our baby naturally. We got to spend 2 days with him. And during that time, I had a lot of deep conversations with my son, Ethan, who wasn't going to be coming home with me. And during that conversation, I said to him, you're not going to be able to embrace the physical world here and give life your best shot, but together we will start a mission around empowering, educating, inspiring people to go and give life their best shot. So that was the birth of You've Got One Shot, my book, the story of a stolen heartbeat and what that taught me about living a meaningful life. When I started writing that book, I thought, well, what about if I start interviewing people that have made the most of their one shot at life? So my podcast now 200 interviews with some of the most successful sports stars, entrepreneurs, business people, teaching people life lessons, stories about, what it takes to overcome adversity. And a lot of those people have faced their demons and their darkness along their journey. And there's a lot of lessons to learn when people are at their darkest point. So I guess for me, empowering and educating people is something that I'm really passionate about. I was doing that prior to that experience in life, through business and entrepreneurship and working in different masterminds with some of the most successful people in the world. But this gave me an actual story and a real life, I guess, instrument in a way to build on something to make a difference in the world. And that's sort of where my whole vision and mission has really been driven from. And I have spoken all around the world, sometimes in stadiums of up to 25,000 people. And I always finish with the story that closes the room with a tear. And it is about, hey, you've only got the one shot at life. Give it your best shot, whatever it is for you. The greatest story ever written is your own. Go and create it.
That's a powerful story, and I am sorry to hear that. And I think that the vision, the mission that you came out, that it helped you develop is absolutely amazing. Absolutely. We're speaking with Craig Schulze. We're talking about taking your shot, and you can find him at craigschulze.com. You get a free shout out from me if you can know how to spell that, but I'll spell it for everyone else. CraigSchulze.com, craigschulze.com. Craig, I want to delve into this book a little bit more. The book title is You've Got One Shot. The key message is you've only really got the one shot. We've brought this a little bit. We're going to talk about other things in this, but it's just so important. And I know that in the book you have some key lessons that we can apply immediately. I'd love to go over some of the key ones if you haven't mentioned them already.
Yeah, look, I think my book is an easy read, I would say, and it is a book of stories and experience. It's not theory. It is theory that I've learned, but I've always applied stuff. So, chapter 3 or chapter 3 or 4 is around mind, body, and spirit. So we talk a little bit about that as a topic. Then I talk about leverage, understanding the power of leverage in your life, leverage people, leverage time, money, and develop meaningful relationships. And that's the leverage of people. So to create a podcast, you've got to build a relationship with a person, so talking about creating your life by adding value into other people's lives. And so that leverage is a really important topic. I talk about how I found my first mentor, which we can dive into that. That's actually a story that I would like to share because that there has got some pearls of wisdom. But that topic there is about generosity, gratitude, and what can happen from just really going with an open heart into situations. Talk about vision, keeping the dream alive. And it's all based on story and experiences. And throughout my book, prior to writing my book, every year my annual tribute publicly to my son was on his birthday. I used to write a lesson that I learned the year before. And this every second chapter, we've added in all the letters that I wrote to him. And the final letter was our vision and mission. Ethan, you take me. You know that I'll do the work. You introduce me to the people, and together we can create a magical movement. So that's some of the things that you can learn. And I invested time, money. I paid to get experts to guide me because it was my first book that I was going all in on. And, the feedback has been magical.
I love that you write letters to your son, or you speak to him, or both. I just really love what you were saying there.
Yeah, every annual on his birthday, I always write about the powerful lesson learned in the year before and turn that into a piece of wisdom for people to learn about. So, it'd be something that you've experienced and, something that's impactful for other people to learn. And, it's a letter written to him and thanking him.
That's great. Now, one thing that how do I say this? Successful entrepreneurs, or if it's part of your job or your work, is travel. I've traveled a lot. You've traveled extensively. It seems like over 100 countries. You've definitely beat me on that. And and you recommend it to entrepreneurs to help them build their business, to help them build that core entrepreneurship. And that was very interesting. No one's ever said it quite that way. Why is travel so important to us business people?
I think, like I always say, treat the world as your oyster, and it really creates perspective. When we travel to places, like I always say, I've played in a charity basketball game in the Philippines in front of 5,000 people, that just the joy that they got out of a free game, of seeing locals playing against some international people. I spoke on live TV in the Middle East, in Lebanon before, so I got interviewed on live TV there. I've stayed in one-star hotels in Africa and India, but I've also stayed in $3,000 a night bungalows in Bora Bora. Been caught up in terrorist attacks in Turkey. But the important thing is people. And in a world of segregation and everything, you have a perspective or a perception of what that place is like, or what that culture's like, or what that person's like, but the reality is, and the truth is, if you go and spend time in different places in the world with different people, everyone's got the same sort of makeup of skin and love and heart and organs, and and everyone is just out there doing the best that they can with what they've got. So I think when you go and travel and embrace and immerse yourself into the environments that they are, whether it's a luxury holiday or trekking through the mountains or whatever it is, really take the time to sit back and say, this is how people live here, this is what they've got, this is what they have, this is their opportunity. And I really encourage it. I have been to 100 different places in the world, and prior to the COVID lockdown era, I was traveling nearly 20 weeks a year, speaking, working with people. Unfortunately, I missed a few opportunities, and one of them was going to be working in Tanzania for a week in a charity-based small village, and that was an experience that I wanted to do. Didn't happen because of the lockdown era, but just go and travel and meet people and put yourself in uncomfortable situations. When you can't speak their language, but you live in their world, it gets you out of your comfort zone. Trying to even order food off a menu in a country where you don't speak their language is a challenge. And that's another thing, breaking the comfort zone by putting yourself in that situation.
I find it very energizing, and I think more highly of people by traveling and seeing people in different settings. You just come to love people more by doing that. So
I will just add one more thing to that too, in regards to building relationship and establishing common ground. I find if I go into a networking event for business, or maybe even just a personal environment where you go into somebody's birthday and you meet people, you can leave that event best friends with somebody that's traveled, because you share stories, and storytelling is one of the biggest assets that you can develop. And there's been so many times that I've built relationships with people based on having experiences in the same countries that they've been to, or sharing ideas or thoughts. Or travel is the ultimate leveler, and travel also creates memories. And I always say to people, I turn money into memories. And you can have all the money in the world, but the best thing that you can have is experience and memories. So there's two other things that I think about travel. Obviously, you can see I'm quite passionate about it.
I love it. Now, what's interesting is you have both, as I mentioned, physical and online businesses. You have both. Is there some strategy behind this? Is there some guiding principle that you figured out, that you kind of like hedging your bets, just kind of being well balanced? Why do you do that?
Look, I think just time and trends. I started my first physical business, which was a fitness club, back in 2001. And back in 2001, you think about technology that we had. There wasn't social media. The phone you use, you could call and text somebody. So at the time, having an online business in 2001 was probably not smart business because it wasn't really possible. A few people had websites, but as we progressed and I got to my first big business challenge in life, which was the global financial crisis. So my first 6 years in business, I turned everything that I did into gold. I'm 22, 23 years old, profitable, owning one gym. What do you go and do? You go and say, well, I want now 5. If I've done this with 1, can I 5 times my wealth? I go and set up franchises. But the global financial crisis was my first economic downturn. And during the economic downturn, banks stopped lending money. So I couldn't sell franchises, couldn't pay for fit outs, couldn't. The US dollar changed to a point where my equipment costs went up massively overnight. People in a cost of living crisis said gyms are the first people to go. I'm not paying that expensive personal trail, run in the park. So all of these things put my back to the wall and I nearly lost everything. So 7 years was great in business. One economic downturn, which was a global financial crisis, nearly took everything from me. And during that point in time, I started to say, well, what are the trends happening here right now? Social media was starting to become a thing. Smartphones were starting to become a thing. Apps were starting to become a thing. Wi-Fi, which meant connectivity to everyone around the world, even though in a lot of countries at the time, you'd have to probably go to a 5-star hotel or to a specialist center to get Wi-Fi. But the point was you could build business internationally, connect with people internationally. So I thought at that time, I need to transition and follow the trends. And so I always say to people in modern society, look at the trends, look what's happening, and I would probably say right now we're on the cusp of another trend, whether you like it or not. I have a moral dilemma with AI, but I also see opportunity with AI. Now, if you ignore the opportunity of AI, it would probably be very equivalent to ignoring how important a website was or an email was or your first social media account was to do business and leverage opportunities in the future. So I would say that for me, my whole philosophy is think global, because, your economy in a retail business like a gym where you're serving a radius of 7 miles, 10 miles, people won't travel much more than that to go to a gym. You are limiting yourself to small people. So if you have the retail business, physical business, think about, well, how can I make money outside of that? So if you are a personal trainer or have a gym, I say to those people, why don't you set up a YouTube channel and start trying to sell products to people outside of your network? That would be one thing. If you have a clothes store in 2025, why don't you, in your downtimes, go live and give products of the day or products of the week, so people could go online and actually start seeing new products. They're not walking into your shop, but they may see it on a live feed on Facebook or something. So start thinking about technology and how it can enhance your business and embrace it. But I do have a moral dilemma with AI, but I see opportunity too.
It's very interesting that you say that you see a problem with AI. I think it can only go so far. I've interviewed the foremost expert on AI in the world a couple of years back, and he made it very clear, it'll never replace humans. It can only go so far. It doesn't. I'll just leave it at that. It's very, very simple. Use it for to the point where it can be beneficial, and then just leave it there.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if that has something to do with your leverage vault, your business library. Can you tell us what is it and how can that help us entrepreneurs?
Yeah, well, I mentioned the word leverage is a chapter in my book. My first mentor in business basically said to me this, Craig, if you can learn how to leverage time and money through time, you can leverage time by getting people to do things that are better than you at it and pay them to do it, or you can start a business and generate cash flow and get yourself out of the business, or then learn how to make money on money, use your cash flow to build wealth through investing in properties, stocks, whatever it is. But leverage time, money, and develop meaningful relationships, you'll become unstoppable. So I wrote it across my website. So Leverage Vault really come about where I was out running different programs and courses and, 3-night events, an hour a night. And I sat there and said, there's so much wisdom and gold and, there's so much value in leverage in this content that I'm creating, but it's all sitting on my computer, just rusting away. And I thought, well, what do I teach people? Learn how to turn nothing into something. Like it's alchemy. You're creating nothing and you turn it into something of value. So I thought, why don't I package up over 200 hours of all my courses, whiz it up a little bit by getting some workbooks and cheat sheets and activities to do and make it so it's not just a do-it-yourself program of just a library of information, but a few activities along the way. And I launched that as a program, charge a few $100s for it. And my concept of Leverage Vault is really, leveraging content, leveraging. So some of the programs I've created how to become the number one person in your industry. That's a course in there. The best advice ever received from 200 of the smartest people in the world. That's a course in there. So I'm basically repurposing something that I've already created, and it's a vault of information. So Leverage Vault. And now I put it on my podcast as a product that people could buy. When people want to learn from me but can't afford my services, I say, hey, here's an entrepreneur university right here, $300, go for your life, So that's sort of the philosophy, and that's and I just never ending. Every time I do a new course now, I'll just upload it into Leverage Vault.
I think that's quite something. I absolutely love it. And with that, one thing I think not all entrepreneurs, not all business people invest in themselves. It's not something you think of because you're so busy and focused on getting your product or your service produced, get it to market, get it sold, get it working. So many things. Because once you go, it's like you just can't seem to stop sometimes. You emphasize investing in yourself. You say it's critical. And I'd love for you to tell us, why is it so important?
Yeah, look, I think your business and life will grow to where you grow. So, I always say to people, you got empty head, you're nearly guaranteed to have empty pockets. And, I invested when I was 26 and business was going good. I spent probably $200,000 over a 3-year period when in my mid-20s to learn how to sell better, to learn how to market better, to learn how to, do all the activities you needed to do in business. But I didn't, and I'm really big on this now. So probably back when I was doing that, university was that was probably your main way to get a career in a profession, or college, you would call it in America. We call it university here, to get your certificate to go out and produce a career. Whereas now there's so many amazing avenues for you to learn and get better at your craft and your skills. So I would say to people now, you can invest in yourself and get better at any skill that you want to do. You could actually even go onto YouTube and spend a good couple of hours there and learn how to sell better. Like there's no excuses. Podcasts are built on this thing. But I always like to invest in myself, because if you put skin in the game, you commit to the game, and the most important thing about my journey of investment, if I invested, so one of the programs that I did was with a platform called the Entourage, probably the largest entrepreneur education program in Australia. I'm now a part owner of that company, but the investment was around $40,000 to $50,000 for a 12-month program. All right. But in that program, there were other people that had spent $40,000 to $50,000 as well. So I'm in this small, container with 7 other entrepreneurs that were willing to invest in themselves that type of money. So we've done countless networking and, outside of that program, 2 of those people are my closest friends today. And we've done lots of different business and concepts. We help each other. When you invest in yourself, you meet people that can open doors for you. In fact, how I'm on this podcast right now is an example of that. I met someone through investing in a mentoring program of a topic that I wanted to learn. I was actually a guest and I ran a masterclass for that. I shared a bit about my story on there, and a person opened the door to meet you, who's got a great podcast, great reach, been doing it for a decade, a lineup of guests, that go onto a waiting list. That's another example of what investing in yourself is really about. Apart from the skill set, the mindset that you get, you put skin in the game, you commit to the game, and in the end, your business and life will grow to where you grow. And if you don't grow and invest, I always say to people, problems are big. For the problems for some people that are mountains are molehills for me, because I've already faced adversity. I've already invested in myself. I've already committed. My mindset's rock solid. I've nearly been bankrupt. I've rebounded from that. Leaving home at 15, all of these little micro wins that you have in your life add up to turning your problems into little speed bumps on the road, because it's not a matter of if a problem or a challenge will happen. It's a matter of when it will happen, how often it will happen, how big it will happen, but most importantly, how you deal with the challenge will be the biggest thing that you'll have to overcome in your life. So investing in yourself is just like one of the pillars. If you want to have success, start thinking like, hey, how am I going to get better? I don't want to have empty pockets, so I've got to fill the head.
Craig, while you were going through that, you made me think of a story I don't think I've ever told. And it's been like 8 years, 7, 8 years. I probably have it all butchered. And if I tell you the person in the story, I don't want people to say, oh, you said it all wrong. So I will omit the name of the person. But this person was looking for something to do and had this opportunity to go to, I believe, an event, a physical event, go to a physical event. Tickets were limited. Person paid $2,000 to learn about how to podcast, how to develop a business. And the person scraped every penny he had, and he went and he did. He paid $2,000 for it. And at the event, he was sitting next to a person who had this last minute, hey, we got a few tickets left, $200. So he paid $2,000, and the person next to him paid $200. He's like, oh my gosh. So, but he paid $2,000 for that event to sit there, and he worked it. And he kept track of the person who sat next to him that paid $200. And again, I would love to tell you the name, but I probably have the story a little butchered, so I'm afraid to say something wrong. But what happened is that person that paid $2,000, he went on to become an amazing, huge podcaster. I mean, really well known. And he kept tabs on that other person who never did anything. So it's all a matter of investing in yourself, but not just that, as you're saying, it opens doors. He just didn't pay $2,000 to sit there. He took notes. He worked it. He met people. He, as you say, worked it, and he made something of it. Would he have done that if he paid $200? I don't know. But the thing is, he took that shot, that chance. And I think that's really it. Whatever that chance is, whatever that shot is, whatever that opportunity is, work with it. And I don't mean to boast, but I have people waiting. I've waited up to 2 years to get on my show. It's not a joke. They're there. But my friend asked me, hey, could you bring on Craig? I would really love it. And I said, sure. So I brought you on a lot sooner, for that and other reasons, because we're working this. So I just want to point that out, that is an entrepreneurial maneuver. You just don't put in the money and let it go work for you and do everything. You still got to go work it. If you have a business or whatever, you still have to do the work to make something of it. Enough of that. So I appreciate that. That's investing in yourself, how important that is. And in your travels, in your career, in all your businesses, I'm curious, we are entrepreneurs and business people in the audience. You may have already mentioned it, but we would love to hear, what's the best advice? Was it just take your best shot? Did we already go over your best advice? What would you say to today's entrepreneurs and business people today?
Yeah, look, I mean, let me just share how I got my first mentor, because there's a lot of wisdom in this, and he's the person that gave me the best advice around the leverage concept. So if I back up a little bit, and I mentioned the word turning nothing into something. This is like the biggest power move of my life. And as we did this, I literally had lunch with my mentor 2 days ago, and I hadn't seen him for 6 years. Like, we hadn't seen each other, and he was in my home state now, and he actually sent me a text message and said, would you like to catch up for lunch? And I was such a, like, this guy is literally, I write a chapter about him in my book, but I want to just share how all of this come about, because probably the most profound story of my life. As a 22, 23-year-old, never done business, no business skills, no life skills or anything. What I made up for that was dreams, desire, the action to do, willing to do whatever it takes for success. Now, what happened was, think of an NBA side come into your gym. So our National Basketball League, one of the clubs come in and asked me if I could help sponsor their club. And I'm young. I'm 6 months into business. I've got no money, no capital. What I did and thought on my feet, I turned nothing into something. And what I had was memberships. So I gave away $1,000, $1,500 memberships for them to raffle at their next fundraising event, to give them an opportunity to raise $15,000, $20,000. But that's all I had. And for me, what did I give away? My time, because I was at my gym anyway. So I actually said, I'm here anyway. I'll give them 100 memberships, because after the year, I'll have 100 new members. So anyway, I gave away the memberships. Didn't think much of it. One of the players' wives, so the strike of gold, the strike of luck, the genius, the karma, whatever you want to call it, that happened was one of the players' wives was one of the winners. She comes in, loves the gym, loves me. We build a good relationship. And then the season starts. She comes in one day and gives me 8 basketball tickets. Now, I'm like going, cool, but I'm only here by myself. I don't need 8 basketball tickets. I put them in my desk. And about a few days later, a young family come into my gym. I didn't know who they were, but it was a father, mother, and their 2 children. They come in, they love the gym. They said, oh, this is great. They join up, and I'm going, wow, I just got $600 a month worth of membership here. So I pull out the 8 basketball tickets, give them to the family. Now, the family go to the basketball, have a great time, but the generosity of giving them that experience, they come into my gym, and the father goes, oh, Craig, I'm, one of our state's biggest business people, and I have a corporate box. I'll be like having a box at the Dallas Cowboys, for argument's sake. Would you like to come in and network with some of our state's most successful business people? So that was like week 1. And then he took a liking to my enthusiasm and my desire. He could see that I was having a go. He taught me how to sell, how to market, how to run a company, taught me how to get through the global financial crisis. He sat me down with his son and taught us how to invest in property. Every business decision that I invested in, or had to make an important, I've called him up. He has, over the last 20 years, had the biggest impact on my life without any doubt whatsoever. Saved me from bankruptcy, helped me refinance, helped me to invest wisely. And that all happened because of generosity and gratitude. I literally turned nothing into something. It was my time. And the best advice I ever received was when he said, Craig, you're not taught this at school. There's no school program that teaches you leverage. They're teaching you calculus and algebra and all of that. Learn how to leverage time and money. Learn how to make money on money. When you get your business for cash flow, don't just spend it all. Go and make money on money. Learn how to develop meaningful relationships, which you're very good at now. It'll open doors for you, and you'll become unstoppable. So if you can learn how to leverage time, money, and develop meaningful relationships, you'll become unstoppable. So that's it.
Can you've given us a few pointers here, some tips here. How do we leverage? We hear it all the time, but I could say, eggs, milk, sugar, vanilla, chocolate, and you say, I know those words. Great. Go bake me the most delicious dessert I ever had. You go, wait, I'm not a chef. So we've heard this word. How do we leverage?
Well, look, there's leverage time. there's leverage money, and there's leverage relationships. So let's just talk about each three for a second. Leveraging time. Let's say that you have a business and you're in the business and you're effectively, you're a sole business owner. And, I always say to people, you're the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. You're doing the finances, you're the HR person, you're the social media person, you're the chief recruiter, you're delivering the product or service, you're everything to everyone, you're the legal team. So to leverage time, go, what are the things in my business that I do or don't like? And what am I good at or not good at? Because in modern society now, there are so many ways to fire yourself from nearly any role in there. We talked about AI. AI could be a massive thing, but there was a massive trend of platforms like Fiverr and that had people that would do social media activities, and they would do them better than you at a fraction of the price. So put a value on your time and do that. I'm just talking about this from a business perspective there. If you don't have a business, leveraging your time could be, it could be, well, for example, getting people to help out with daily activities. Like, it could be a cleaner. You might take 4 hours to clean your house. You might say, well, I'm making $200 an hour in my job or $80 an hour, and I can get somebody to come in and help me with tasks, for example. I could go down a whole rabbit hole in that topic there, but let's look at money. People say, Craig, I'm broke. I don't have money. So how can I make money on money? I don't have a business. I'm facing ends meet. Scenario financially. I say every single person, if you went through your house and got rid of all your hoarder base activities, I bet you if you sold them on a marketplace like eBay or did a garage sale, I bet you could raise somewhere between $1,000 and $3,000. That is your seed capital to make smart investments. All right. So you're starting small here, $3,000 and getting a return of 15, 20%. Is not going to be very, it's going to be a long road, but it's your starting point. All right. So if you can start somewhere and get the right behaviors and activities going, then, you've raised $2,000 of junk in your house or old clothes or old anything, and you use that money to start the ball rolling. Or you might invest it into a program to help you get the skills that you can then turn into something. Leveraging skills is a really powerful thing. If you are good at something in your job, why not start a side hustle around the consultancy of that skill? You might be a professional salesperson on the road. Why don't you start a consultancy business where you're saying, I want to help you grow your business. I charge $100 an hour. I'll sit down with your team and I'll train them in sales, like leveraging skills. And the most important thing is putting yourself into positions to meet people that can help open doors. And now don't make that a one-way traffic. That there has to be, I'm providing value for you in a reciprocal exchange of value so somebody respects you. So my podcast, I didn't get a number one NBA draft pick on my podcast just because he wanted to get onto my podcast. I got him through a relationship, and that person said, hey, Craig is the real deal. He's respectful. He'll showcase your story really well. You'll have an engaging conversation. And through that relationship, I've got a former number one NBA basketballer on my show. So these are the type of things to ultimately I always say to people, enthusiasm on fire will always beat knowledge on ice. And what I mean by that, if you know everything that we've talked about today and you've said, wow, massive light bulb moment, massive light, if you sit on information, that's knowledge on ice. Enthusiasm on fire is just somebody that gets out there and has a go. Put yourself in the positions to open the opportunities. So, yeah, leverage is a real biggie. It's a big topic. But yeah, learn how to leverage time and money and just get onto YouTube and start researching it. But you need to know it.
Absolutely. You said you had 3 different types of leveraging, and I have to think back on everything. Did we go over all 3?
Yeah, the last one, so time and money, but the last one is really the relationship piece. How can we do joint ventures together? How can we collaborate on projects together? How can you help me get in front of my perfect prospect? How can I help you get in front of your perfect prospect? And it all gets down to value. People join people in life. I don't want to do business with people that are not going anywhere, because they've got to get themselves into a position where we can do a fair, equal market exchange. I'm happy to mentor people that are starting their journey and guide people that way, but people have to show up and show that they're committed to their dreams, their desires, and their work. And similarly, I don't want to be in a position where I have to not add value to somebody that's going to help me. I don't want to be the person ring and say, can you get me on this podcast? Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? No, I need to show value in our relationship, and then the doors will open.
I love it. Absolutely amazing. Craig, I said Craig, that's right. Not Greg, but Craig, Craig, Craig Schulze, talking about taking your shot. He's at craigschulze.com. And I got just a few moments here. And as you're saying all this and I'm going through and I'm thinking, it seems everything you've done so far that we've talked about has gone well. You've taken that shot. You've done well. You've taken nothing. You've turned it into something. You observed and recognized an opportunity when it came. And I'm thinking, while you're saying all this, I'm thinking, what was your biggest failure? If you had it where it just all fell apart, and how did you handle that? Because you've got so much knowledge and you're a master on how to leverage. So I'd love to know about your biggest failure and how you dealt with it.
Yeah, look, I think knowledge is really a big thing. And my first 7 years in business, I was like walking around thinking everything I'm doing here is, I thought that I could, build the biggest business in the world at the time. Like, there was no economic downturn. Now, what happened was I was making good money. I'd leverage my time so I could choose whether I only worked 3 days a week or not at the time. And I started investing in properties. So I'm like I'm using my cash flow now to build wealth. Now, and I was using what people would say, other people's money to help me accelerate growth. So I'd go to the bank and say, here's my business and here's what I want to do. Now, what happened? I didn't expect or didn't understand or didn't know about the cycles of economic downturns. We just went through one through the COVID-19 era of lockdowns, and that would have killed all my retail businesses at the time. The global financial crisis was probably another one. The dot-com bubble was probably one that, I wasn't really involved in that then. That had just happened. But I didn't manage my lack of self-awareness around that possibility meant that I went into 2007 and opened multiple gyms in the space of 18 months. I said, I've done this well once. Let me just duplicate myself 4 or 5 times. So risk management was my downfall. And I basically got caught, I guess when the music stopped, I got caught with, basically without a chair, effectively. And the bank said, I'm not lending you money anymore. This is an economic downturn. We're a credit crunch. You want $300,000 to fit out your gym, and you're starting your gym and you've got no clients behind you. You've got no track record in revenue here. And that happened to multiple gyms. But I was also selling franchises. So the scenario there was I was trying to sell a $100,000 franchise, which needed a fit out of $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. Banks will then go, well, I'm not lending them money either. So I'm like, oh, okay, this economic downturn, which is out of my control, but I'd gone all in. Like, I literally had nothing left on the table because I had to put all my property up as capital. It took me 3 years to get out of that situation. It probably would have been easier if I just foreclosed and bankrupted myself. But I said to myself, Craig, this is the biggest lesson you're ever going to learn. And if I ever it's not a matter of if, but when I get myself out of this situation, and I will never put myself in that situation again. So risk management was really low as a mid-20-year-old entrepreneur business person. But when we get to the lockdown era, I'd already positioned myself where I could still make choices. I could navigate through that scenario. I didn't have physical businesses anymore. Strategically, if I had income generated from multiple countries, if my country locked down, I could still do business, and I was still able to leverage the internet. So risk management, if you lack the awareness around, I guess, taking opportunities, sometimes you need that mentor, that guide, and people to be able to pull you back in and actually bounce your idea off. And, I've made some good investments in private companies, but there's been one that my mentor said, this, Craig, looks like unbelievable on paper, but high risk. And COVID-19 wiped that out. It was high risk, had high return. We still have that bubbling away in the background, but point is risk management. Don't get ahead of yourself, because, you will be humbled by the hidden hand.
Totally. Love it, love it, love it. Once again, this is Craig Schulze. We talked about taking your shot, and he's at CraigSchulze.com, CraigSchulze.com. Craig, great advice. Really, really good. It hits home with me. It resonates. I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show and telling us all about it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tony. I really appreciate it, and keep up the good work with your show, because, you make a difference. I always say to people, one time in your life that one message to the right person to the right time can change the world. My message back as a 15-year-old from the school principal has now made millions of views on my podcast, speaking all over the world. So your message is resonating with someone at the time, and you could be changing the world whether you know it or you don't. Thank you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. And to you in the audience, I want to thank you so much for listening. And if you like this, share this with your friends. Tell them about Craig Schulze, and tell them about that leverage vault. That is important for you out there who are entrepreneurs, you're business people, you're thinking about doing something. Maybe you want to hack your day job. Get into that leverage vault. That's like the good stuff here. And get that book from him, Taking Your Shot. That's not the name of the title. You're going to have to go look that up now. And wherever you're getting this, just do me one favor, aside from telling your friends, follow the show. It really helps in bringing in more amazing guests to you. Follow the show. Just click that follow or subscribe or whatever buttons there are. Click them all. All right. Let's use this and let's help you move on your journey to success. Thanks. And remember, guys, just take action. Success awaits those who persevere and remain steadfast despite the odds. Take that shot, sow good seeds, do good deeds, and I'll see you on the next episode.